All right, go ahead. Set the tone. Why not? We're only a few hours away from puck drop. Game 4 tonight. Leafs, Florida, right here on TSN Radio. We're going to lead you all the way up to the game, right? We got Jimmy Ralph coming up in the booth. Pierre's down there. LeBron will join us. Lots on the Leafs tonight, and I'm trying to get a read on how people in the city feel, how the fan base feels, like what the ratings are going to be like tonight. Like how many people are changing their schedules to make sure they can see the game tonight? I think people still want to tune in.
Of course.
Big time. Big time.
You're never packing it in until it's over. People are skeptical, though, because they all say the same thing, and I almost think the same thing. It's like, wasn't the last game enough for some desperation? Like, are you going to really flip the switch tonight where it's like elimination time? Like William Nylander, who claims it's going to be fun tonight because you got to play your best. Mm-hmm. No. You had to play your best as soon as the puck dropped for the playoffs. There's just been some weird comments, like Mitch coming out and saying the media, he doesn't care. And then Nylander saying that. When I look at that, it's just some immaturity involved there. It's just like... It's just immature comments.
I think it's going to be a massive ratings night because I honest to God, like I think the whole country's watching. I really do. And you've said this before, Hayes. People love the Leafs and they love to hate the Leafs. So everyone is watching to see what unfolds tonight. What team shows up? Do they have fight in them? Do they have the jam to get it done and try and claw back into this series? I think this could be a massive ratings. Maybe I'm wrong. There might be in your circle of friends, guys, that have checked out and said, I'm done with them and all that. But I think everyone's I think everyone's watching. I really do.
Yeah, I guess the argument on that front would be any Leaf fans that have decided I'm out. Like, I don't want to subject myself to it. There are probably 2 or 3 Leaf haters who are in, right?
Right.
Who are like, we have to see this tonight. We got to see what this team's all about. And I am curious as opposed to excited. Like, it is a very different view. You know, like going into Game 6 against Tampa or any of the previous series where it was close, you know, like, any other Game 4 in the past. We referenced Washington yesterday or a couple of days ago when they played the Capitals. They were up 2-1 in that series. Tyler Bozak scored in overtime from Nazem Kadri. Game 3, they went up 2-1. I remember I was in the seats watching that game. I remember leaving the building saying they might actually win this. They lost 4 in a row to Washington after that, and the Capitals were in their cup contention window, and that was the end of the road. But the anticipation for that Game 4 was excitement. Anything can happen, right? The next year against Boston and Tampa and Montreal. Like Game 4s over the past, 7 years have been, I can't wait to get to puck drop. There's a little bit of nervous energy. It is a totally different approach for me anyway, going into it tonight.
It's almost like go ahead and shock me if you want to.
Well, I'm more curious how they actually play as opposed to the actual result. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, if this was a 2-1 series, either way, Leafs up 2-1, Florida up 2-1, I'd be curious simply about the result. Like, you got to get through the game, and I'm wondering, okay, what's going to happen here? Who's going to step up? Do they play well? Do they play poorly? But really, it's about who wins and loses and who loses. I don't have that same feel tonight because it's almost as if everyone has their checklist out or everyone's evaluating tonight. Everyone's a scout. And it's not even about like talent and ability because we're well aware of the talent and we're well aware of what this team can look like when they play well. It's a gut check evaluation. Like, that's what I'm curious about tonight. Do these guys actually show up and play, or do they fold up shop and say, I'm out of here? In fact, you guys can fly home. I'm going to Urban Meyer this thing. I'm going to stay in Miami.
I know, but what's the reaction if they play their asses off and they compete and do everything like that and they still lose the game?
Well, in the end, it's probably not worth anything if they still lose the game, but it is better than the alternative. You show up and embarrass yourself, you lose 7-0.
Wow, where were you guys? What are you most watching for? Are you going to know 10 minutes into the game where they're at, or does it take like for me? Is it the first period? Like, where do you think you're going to sort it out?
much like our phone calls when I start them, Jamie.
Yes.
I want to see if the Leafs can throw something at Florida to get their attention. I want to see if they can throw a first period and a second period and ultimately a win to get Florida's attention, because Florida was down 3-1. So I want to see if they can get their attention. And would anybody kind of pull a Justin Williams and skate by their bench and say, a lot of hockey left? I don't know. But can they get Florida's attention is what I want to see.
Well,
can you throw something at them where it's like, man, they just overwhelmed them in the first period and it's 4-0. Mm-hmm. It's 5-0. It's 4-0 after 2. Overwhelm them. They can't keep up with that. Bobrovsky had no answer. I just basically want to see if they could toss something at them.
Yeah, and you also have to take into consideration what the other team could do tonight as well. Like, that could go either way for Florida.
Oh, this whole series,
Right.
We haven't given any props to the Florida Panthers.
No, and they deserve
We're
a lot of it.
Toronto-based show. We shouldn't be giving props to the Panthers. But at the end of the day, they're a team that's playing very well right now.
They are. They've won 6 in a row, which could suggest they're due for an off game. Like, maybe they show up tonight, they're awful. Bobrovsky gets pulled after 20. That's a possibility.
You said that before the last game.
Yeah, of course. I've said
it's
it many times. I'm
possible,
sure
but
Boston said it, in the previous round. But
It is possible. There's so many different scenarios. Joseph Woll could be this, wonder kid, or he could be overwhelmed by the moment and go, this is a tough situation to be put a kid in here. And all of a sudden it doesn't look that good. Like, there's so many different, and I don't know how you guys feel, but I've run over 50 scenarios in my head. I'm curious to see how it's going to unfold. But the unfortunate part, we have zero control. I'll be sitting on my couch. You guys will be sitting on your couch going, or it's in the studio going, how's this going to unfold here? We have no control how they're going to play. And the other thing is they might play a hell of a game, and Florida might go, yeah, we're going to have a hell of a game. And Matthew Tkachuk might go, it's not happening on my watch. Like, there's so many different factors that how it's going to unfold tonight. But we'll know in 3 hours, or basically 3.5 hours in our head where
we'll
how
have a
this
pretty
is
good
going to
idea.
look.
Like, I think it would be more surprising if Florida didn't show up tonight. If they just all of a sudden took their foot off the gas. You got to believe Paul Maurice for 2 days now has been hammering away on them. Like, stay on your toes, put them to bed, end it right now. Make sure you don't fly back to Toronto. Like, I would expect to see an inspired group tonight, and I would assume a pretty loud building and a lot of locals in the house tonight. Like, I'm not sure how many Leaf fans are sticking around for the game tonight. How many made plans and decided, forget it, I'm not flying down anymore.
Dude, no,
I'm not going to do it.
Leaf fans will be all over that building. It'll be the same as last game.
You think so?
It didn't look like it last game.
There weren't as many Leaf fans as everyone was, Now, that could have been what they were hoping to do, right? Like, they may have actually withheld tickets and Florida sold out, and the Panthers fans showed up and actually bought the tickets. We'll see what happens tonight. But I think the Joseph Woll barometer is probably a good one in terms of trying to get a readout on where people are at going into this game. And what I mean by that is, and we talked about it yesterday when it came out, when it was official that Joseph Woll was going to start the game tonight, that should have been breaking news and borderline panic-inducing news.
Sure.
That you have your third-string rookie goalie playing for you in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. That, in any other scenario, is stop the presses, breaking news, panic-inducing. We got to talk about this.
But nobody can get past the star players having zero goals.
Okay.
And they can't even get to the goalie.
Then let me run through the list, and you guys tell me where it stops. Like, at some point, Joseph Woll's production tonight becomes a story that is slotted correctly. Okay? Like, I care more about how he plays tonight than how Sam Lafferty plays, for
100%.
example. Right?
Yeah.
Or Mark Giordano if he's the seventh defenseman. Joseph Woll and his production tonight, or Austin Matthews?
Austin Matthews.
See,
are you on Joseph Woll?
No, I'm
on
Austin
Joseph-
Matthews. I'm Austin Matthews.
But here's why I'm on Joseph Woll. I've seen Joe Pavelski and I've seen Leon Draisaitl both score 4 goals and have amazing games in losing efforts.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the goalie, especially at this
The
situation.
goalie should always be number one, but in this scenario, what Hayes is posing here, it's 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so Noodles, is he number one for you? Like, is Joseph Woll's production tonight, is that the number one storyline going in?
Because yes, because if you want to wake up tomorrow and have them playing Friday, like that's honestly, and it's by default. If you just say, let's take the goalie out of the scenario, because we always do that when it's like MVP, what's the most important thing? Obviously, it's the core four. Obviously, it's what we've been talking about. But if this guy, if it goes south for him, it doesn't matter what the core four do, because I'm just pointing to Draisaitl had 4 goals in a losing effort. Matthews could dominate the building. And, like, let's not lose sight that Florida, Boston was up 3-2, 4-3, 4-4, 5-4, and then Florida goes, we'll put up 7 to win tonight. They did that, I think, in Game 6, I believe it was. Like, that's the scary part is the goaltender. That can make or break the night. So if I just remove Woll, let's remove the goaltending thing. It's a core 4, but for me, it's still Woll.
Yeah, see, it's not for me because of what I said off the top of the show. It's not about wins and losses tonight for me. Like, I'm not there. I will maybe get there for Game 5. I'll definitely be there for Game 6. Like, I think they need 2 wins before everything resets and you start saying, okay, like, let's actually talk about what's going on here. Can they win? How do they win? I'm not there. Like, this is pure evaluation. Like, for me, and that's why how Matthews shows up tonight, way more important. Mitch Marner, way more important. I think William Nylander, more important. I think Sheldon Keefe and how he acts tonight. From I'm just talking my own viewpoint.
You mean
and how I'm looking
as
at the
far
game.
as deployment? And
Yes. Like, what does he do with the lines tonight? If Matthews and Marner are terrible again, does he just keep rolling them out? They're going 11-4 to
the lines
7D.
35 times in every single one of the playoff games. Why would tonight be any different?
Well, because it didn't happen necessarily the other night, not with the big guys. I would assume the blender will come out. Like, right. And that's what I'm saying, Noodles. Like, at some point, it does become Woll because of the nature of the position. He's a kid. It's a really cool story. Like, he's had a great year. He's, outside of the injury, he's been built up. They've been waiting for this new wave of homegrown goaltending for a long, long time, and he's got to play well. And I want to see what he's like under the lights. Like, it's one thing to come into the game halfway through when you haven't been able to think about it. He's had 2 days. Like, he would have left the building after Game 3 and probably knew Samsonov's not playing. Like, you're the guy. So you've been sleeping on this for like 2 nights. You're going into your first real start, as in a playoff round on the road, do or die. Like, it's very compelling. I am very intrigued by Joseph Woll, but for me, it's further down the list.
Well, no, I get
of
it.
Other guys.
I understand. It's just like, where are we at if those guys, like the core 4, just have a game and they each have 4 points and are chugging, and this guy is a gas can. And they're out tomorrow.
Obviously,
like, that's what worries.
And that could go both ways, right? Like, Joseph Woll could play great tonight, and they could still lose 2-1 because the other guys didn't show up. Like, it is, they are matching together here. Yeah. There has to be some intertwining. It is amazing that we're even debating whether those guys are going to show up. Like, it is actually an indictment before we even get to puck drop. Like, Draisaitl and McDavid are showing up tonight. Like, they are showing up.
It's not an automatic with those 4 guys.
It's not an automatic with those 4.
But I think they will, though. I really do. I think the Leafs top players, like, to a man, they stunk last game. There's no debating that. And they should have come out and said that instead of saying, we don't care what people say and blah, blah, blah. Like, say, can't wait for Wednesday's game. We're going to give us, show you our best, and that's it. And that's what they need to do tonight. You're right. I'd be shocked if in Edmonton 29 and 97 aren't flying tonight. Doesn't mean that Vegas can't show up and play hard and try and take a stranglehold on that series too. Bottom line is there's teams that are fighting for their lives. And we can't sleep on the Florida Panthers. You can't sleep on Vegas. You can't sleep on Dallas. All of a sudden made it a series last night, and Carolina all of a sudden has a stranglehold. Like, these teams are playing for keeps tonight, and let's see who steps up. And I think we'll call it core 4 for the Leafs. I think they show up tonight. I really do, personally.
Yeah, I guess you should believe that. I thought they would for Game 3 though, and it didn't happen. And I understand that's recency bias. Right. But everyone's seen all of the stats, right? Like Mitch Marner, he doesn't score goals after the first 2 games of his series. Everyone's seen it. Like it just doesn't it doesn't happen. And it's not that he's a natural goal scorer, but he doesn't score 8 goals a year. Like this guy scores 25 a year. You can't get to 100 points and be a first-team All-Star if you don't score goals and are not capable of creating your own offense. He is capable of doing that. A lot of people bring up John Tavares, and I understand, historically speaking, you would look at the captain and say that guy's got to drive the bus. But he's not the leader of the team on the ice, and he hasn't been for years. Yes, he's got to play well. Yes, he gets paid a lot of money. Yes, he has the C, and he's a veteran, and there's a lot on the line for him and his legacy.
He can bang one in the power play.
Absolutely.
Kickstart the party. It doesn't have to be Austin and Mitch, although they have to drive the bus. John Tavares can bang one in the power play.
Got to be way better.
So can Ryan O'Reilly. So can all of them.
Yep.
He did in Game 6.
That was a triumphant moment for him.
The thing is, they have to find what they're best at. And it might be a 2-1 win tonight. They just have to win. That's the only thing is how the formula unfolds. Yes, we want to see, top players play top players and get 4 points and dominate and multiple goals and stuff. It might not unfold that way. Mm-hmm. It might be a greasy, tight, contested game that is one shot. You get one shot to be a difference maker, and you have to convert it. Like, that's what playoff hockey is. And I don't know what the Florida Panthers or their mantra or their mindset is going in. They want to play loose and driving, or do they want to play, hey, let's try and win 1-0, 2-1 tonight? So either way, you've got to find a way to win, and your top players have to deliver it tonight.
What do they say about starters in baseball, Hayes? They either stop a streak or they keep it going, right? Mm-hmm. The best players on every team, they got to create momentum and drive play and turn the tables, or they go out on the ice after a goal and they keep it going. That's what the best player in any sports job is. Turn the tide, keep things going in your direction. That's what they got to do.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. Alec Manoah couldn't make that work last night. It is getting... It's not Nick Cage. Not Nick Cage level of concern, but it's pushing up on...
Barnes? Is it Scotty Barnes level of concern, like O's talked about?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the numbers aren't great. The pitch clock violation, he's walking guys. He just looks uncomfortable on the mound. There's no other way to put it. He didn't get rocked last night, but again, his velocity, it doesn't seem to be where it's been. His control of the plate and the strike zone, not where it was. And they're coming off 3 straight wins, and that's exactly what you're talking about. You get him on the mound,
keep it going to 4.
Keep it going. Go out there, give him 7 strong, 1 earned, allow the bats to put 4 on the board. That should be enough. For a guy like Alec Manoah on the road, you put some run production up the way the Jays did last night, it should be enough, but it wasn't. And that's what we're talking about. We got a lot of stuff going on in Toronto. Again, the Jays lose last night. Manoah didn't pitch very well. What's going on down at BMO Field with fans throwing stuff at players and
J.J. Redick's getting interviewed.
J.J. Redick is giving out hot takes on ESPN and then flying up here and interviewing for the job of the Nick Nurse vacancy.
Yeah.
It's a wild scene, man. I don't know. The Leafs, it's ever since they lost that Game 3, maybe it was Game 2. It's everything is kind of
falling off.
Yeah, things are spinning out of control up here.
Our pets' heads are falling off.
We got to figure this out. That scene at BMO last night. I don't know if you guys saw the video.
I saw it.
Through a megaphone or something.
Yeah, it wasn't even close to hitting the player. Not that justifies anything. You're a complete loser. And that's what it is. It's the TFC has really loud, boisterous super fans that have been there since day one, and they all rally in Liberty Village, and they all go down, and and listen, TFC has been awful, and they lost last night to CF Montreal. That's their biggest rival. They didn't play well. But Mark-Anthony Kaye was one of the few players that actually went down to kind of greet the supporters, which is a post-game ritual, win, lose, or draw. And the fans are going crazy. And this one guy, throws a megaphone. For starters, that's probably a diehard fan, I would assume. If you're bringing a megaphone and you're sticking around well after a match like that last night, where there's barely anyone there anyway,
Yeah.
This is going to sting, but you're getting banned for life.
Well, how do you get a megaphone in the stadium?
Well,
Don't you
that's
have to go
soccer,
through
man.
security?
That's soccer. Like there's fireworks going off down there.
That guy's a complete loser. For
Yeah,
doing
it's
that.
complete
I'm sorry.
loser mode, and you're done. You're toast.
We've talked
I
about this
get
before.
that.
Any type of fan behavior like this, you've lost your privileges in all sporting stadiums.
Yeah.
And
Very
you're
simple.
right.
Yell and scream
Scan
if
his
you want.
face, and it's never allowed in a building again.
Not going
That's
to
it.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks because you're right. He's probably that motion probably got the best of him, but like that's crossing a line. Like just and you're right. It wasn't close to injuring anybody, but it's still you're throwing a giant object like that. If you sidearm that and that hits somebody,
right,
in the side of the head, like that's just it's overboard. And yes, he should receive a fine.
I think
or
it's
ban
it's got to be a lifetime ban. I would think. And you're right. He's actually lucky he's not getting sued. Today, because if that goes sideways and hits a security guard in the head or something, you're toast.
You know how things can go sideways very quickly, but it comes back to how are you walking in with a megaphone and security's like, yeah, no problem, go ahead, waving that in.
Supporter.
Type of thing.
You're a supporter. Go ahead, you can do that.
I don't know. That's
the nature of soccer, man. I'm a big supporter. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go pick a quick fight.
I respect the passion. That crossed the line, unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
Bad.
That's pushing the limits. That's over the line. All right, so Leafs Panthers tonight, right here on TSN Radio. Game 4 tonight. Got a lot of people coming up that will look ahead to the game. Kevin Weeks is going to join us in about 10 minutes, get his take on Joseph Woll, the core 4 players, what he expects out of the Panthers tonight. The Oilers back in action as well with their backs up against the wall. Game 4, borderline must win. For them, borderline must win before they head back to Vegas for Game 5. So we got Weeksy coming up. We got MJ coming up. Jimmy Ralph from the rink tonight. Pierre LeBrun from the rink tonight. Jerry's percentages as well at 5:30. So we look forward to catching up with Jerry and our tailor-made picks.
Our tailor-made picks. And after the break, I'll explain why you're a fake friend.
Oh, okay. We'll get to the bottom of it. Let's get to the bottom of that. I look forward to this explanation. And I'm sure I will have a counter. We'll do that next.
So, Noodles, I'm going to explain why this guy's a fake friend.
All right.
For 6 years, I've said, you want to golf on Wednesdays? No, I can't. I can never play on Wednesday. Today, I called Darcy Tucker. What are you doing? I'm golfing. Oh, yeah? With who? Hazy B.
Wow.
Not only is he a friend stealer, he's a fake friend.
No, see, there's always context.
Why is it all? Why?
Because I'll give you the context. Let me explain. All right, I'll give you the context.
All right.
My wife works Mondays and Wednesdays. I am responsible for getting my kids to school. If you want to play at...
Well, your kids are out of town?
No, I brought my kids to school.
Oh.
If you want to play at 9:40, I can maybe play, but you don't want to do that. That's that. So you can't make that argument. Or
so all this time you never mentioned, I could maybe do it a little later.
I literally last week, did I not say, hey, let me check on the 9:40 or whatever? And you're like, nah, I'm not doing that. Like the other day, we had to go out first so we could leave at 10:30. You'll write me and say 8:06 tomorrow. I can't do that. I can't, and I can't get Weston's an hour away from my house. So
Mondays,
well, dude, I drive out to Flin Flon where your course is.
Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm there. You tell me when we can set it up. I'll leave whenever because my wife can get the kids to school. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I have to get the kids to school.
You've got a
I did the
commitment.
same thing today. Exactly. That's my responsibility. As a parent, I can't do it. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
You've talked to the school if you could drop the kids off early.
I know. Like, it's such a degenerate move. Like, anyway, I could drop them off around 8:15.
I've seen some moves. I've seen, like, baby seats strapped onto a golf cart before.
Oh, yeah. Those videos
I've seen
are
that
everywhere.
move. I've seen that. I've played with a guy move. The kid sleeping in the golf cart. Legally strapped in.
That's
and
wild, man. That is a bridge too far.
That
commitment. Is a bridge too far. I've had like older kids come out and just sit in the cart while their dad's playing. Yeah,
that's so greasy.
I've seen that a few times. Like I've been in
iPad?
a group. Yeah, basically they got their phone or an iPad. Get them some food. Yeah,
That's a guy that's saying, I'm playing golf no matter what.
Flat out, like literally, like
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Yeah, you've got the kid. You've got the kid today. No problem. He's
Right.
coming with me to the course.
Got
That's
him.
it.
No
Yeah.
issues there. Yep. Thumbs up. We're good. All right. I'm teeing off in half an hour.
Aren't
Get
you a
in the
little
car.
surprised that golf courses haven't had, like, the sports teams are starting to do it? The little daycare area. You gotta get dinged for $100 if you bring your kids in there. Chill out.
It's a
that
long
would be
time.
smart, though. If you had, like, how long is a round on average? 4 hours?
Yeah,
3 to
4 hours. Yeah, the average person probably 4.
Okay, so it's $25 an hour. So you're right, $100. You drop the kid off in the
That place
golf,
would be loaded.
The
Loaded.
Weston daycare for half a day, and the kid is fed and watered, you name it, everything taken care of, and you go golf and come back, and if it's nap time in the afternoon, the kid's having a nice nap. Like, that's probably, I don't think that's far off. Do you think golf courses would think of that?
No,
or no? Is it
they
just,
don't. Because then it means, you got to employ more people and everyone else. Like, it's an adult atmosphere. I don't think anyone's looking for that. It seems like a possibility for like a resort, like a golf course on a resort, but I don't think it's going to pop up anywhere in the city of Toronto. I don't anticipate that being the case. So there you go. That's the explanation, all right? Okay, we got a couple of games in the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. Game 4, Leafs Panthers. Game 4, Oilers Golden Knights. To tee it up, we're joined now by former NHL goaltender, former teammate of Urzo. You see him on ESPN, TSN hockey analyst as well. Here's Kevin Weeks. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm good, fellas. Ready to go. How are you guys doing? Just ironing my suit right now.
We're doing okay.
Tonight.
Yeah, man, you got to look good. We're trying to figure out how we're approaching this game tonight. The Leafs they're in a bind. They're down 3-0, and it's not a good scene up here. I'm sure you're aware of that in your hometown.
Yeah.
People are freaking out a little bit. Like, what is catching your eye going into the game tonight? From a Leaf perspective, what are you looking for?
Well, first thing, the best part is being on with you guys. All my 150 buddies back home are listening. They don't have to text me and ask me what I think about tonight.
Right.
They can just
There you
listen to
go.
the show, and they're loyal listeners anyway, so that's all good. But I would say this from the Leafs tonight. The first thing for me is the urgency from the puck drop. The drop of the puck, it's about the urgency. You know that they have a really good offensive team. The big four have kind of dried up of late, but they have a really good offensive team. Get out. Get on the attack, get on the forecheck. I know they're not a forechecking team as such in their top two lines, but get on the forecheck, force turnovers, try to pepper Florida early. If the Leafs are going to be successful, I think they should have 15 to 20 shots in the first period. Just come out blazing. Shoot from the bench. Shoot from the dressing room. Who cares? Shoot from the parking lot. Shoot everything. That's number one. Number two, I would say stay out of the box because you don't want to give Florida any momentum. Stay out of the box. Come out blazing offensively, at least putting pucks to net, and go from there. I think those two keys will kind of set the tone for the game in terms of how the Leafs are going to play for me.
I think the question up here is, Weeksy, like, that's fine and dandy if they come out blazing for this game, but why was it not there the last game? I think that's the big question. It's like, oh, yeah, we're going to come out and be buzzing tonight. It's like, you needed to be buzzing in Game 3 because your life was on the line, and why didn't it happen?
I think the biggest thing, is ultimately that urgency should always be there in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And that's part of learning how to have success. I mean, the three of us, we've all played on teams that have had success in the postseason. We know that that's the motto. Every shift, every possession matters. There's so much riding on it. And we always say the rink shrinks in the postseason. I say that all the time. It feels like it goes from 200 by 85 to 150 by 50. It's a hot box in there. There's no time and space to make plays. It forces you to be intense, quite frankly. But to your point, that's the biggest challenge for a group that's still searching for that group success in the postseason, where that's something that they're learning, but they don't necessarily understand that at this point. I think if you go to maybe a more seasoned group that's had playoff runs before, they would certainly get that. And let alone the teams that have won, they certainly get that. But the Leafs are still cutting their teeth in the postseason, and that's why that's showing so far in this round, to your point.
Weeksy, where are you at with the young goaltender getting a start? Hayes was talking about before the break. It's a a little different when you come in off the bench. You don't have all day to think about it. You just react. And he probably would have known at the end of last game the severity of Samsonov's injury. So now all of a sudden you've got to marinate in it for the next 2 nights. And now you're a kid getting your first playoff start. Where are you at with Joseph Woll?
Well, I've been a big Joseph Woll guy since he was at Boston College and then playing in the World Juniors. And a lot of our non-experts back at home in Toronto try to take my head off when I was saying all along that the Leafs should have gone out and gotten somebody as insurance coming down the stretch, not as a criticism to Woll, because I've been a big Woll guy and I remain one. But for exactly this moment, because they know that their goalies have sustained injuries all year, that's been a pattern. So go out and get Quick, Fleury, whoever, Korpisalo, anybody. I mean, Vegas has had 5 goalies this year. I was just in Vegas last week, and Jonathan Quick is stashed there. He wasn't even playing. So, and he's won 2 cups, and he could be a future Hall of Famer. So to me, I would have liked to have seen them get that. But for Woll specifically himself in this game, look, he shredded up the American League. He's 24 years old now. He's an AHL All-Star. He had a .927 save percentage now with the Marlies. He's done everything he can. And quite frankly, in watching him play at the NHL level, he looked comfortable. So just embrace the moment, embrace the opportunity, go out and kick, enjoy it, soak it up, and just try to give your team a chance to win. And I'm sure you'd say that, being not only a former goalie, but a former goalie coach too, Newells. I'm sure you'd be telling them exactly that.
What do you make of Bobrovsky, Kev? Like he seems to just, he was sleepwalking. He would have his hat on, his hair's a mess on the bench. He goes in there and gets shelled, and then he's Dominic Hasek. How do you explain that?
You know, Bob's was on fire coming down the stretch till he had a little bit of an illness and he was out of the lineup. And then Lyon started roaring, and his mane seemed to be on fire all of a sudden.
His mane wasn't ready.
His mane was crispy, Bo. That mane was crispy with the smoke on it. He was smoking for them. And I kept saying it. I know people are laughing, same thing. I'm like, yo, they got to get Bob back in there. Not for anything, because you have to give Lyon credit for saving the season at the end of the season. And you guys have talked about it, and I've heard you guys talking about Coach Mo and how he was pushing all the right buttons on the bench that game up in Toronto to even get them into the playoffs. And so, but for Bob, I think really for him, the team is playing so well now that this looks more. Bob's is more comfortable because the team is more predictable. And maybe even as predictable as they were in Columbus when they were playing well there, as you guys remember, under Torts. Play inside the dots in the D zone, have good sticks in the D zone, actually want to defend, commit to defending, and just not play Friday night shinny up at double rinks back home. They've done a really good job of that to their credit, and you could see guys buying in. So Bob looks more locked in. Another thing to watch too, he looks very zen right now. I was like, before the game start, when you watch him, he's doing all these little movements. You could see his eyes are closed. Like, he seems to be in a very good place mentally. But at the same time, the guys are playing well in front of him too. Oh, he's locked in right now. He looks like the 2-time Vezina Trophy winner that is Sergei Bobrovsky right now.
We're chatting with Kevin Weeks. So a scenario was just brought up to us that we could, by like midnight tonight, have the Leafs down 3-1 heading back to Toronto for Game 5. The Oilers down 3-1 heading to Vegas for Game 5. If that happens, if the Leafs win tonight, the Oilers lose, who would you give, the better chance of actually coming back and winning the series? Edmonton or Toronto?
I give it to the Oil because I've done 2 of their games, and I was at their last game in Vegas before they just went back home to Edmonton. So they're just a team that has game breakers. So too do the Leafs and Austin and Mitch and everybody else. But that power play, when you consider that power play, and listen, Noodles, O-Dog, we played against all these great players in the modern history of the game. Gretz, Mess, Curry, Mario, like all of them we played against. Sid, like you name it. For this power play to be the best power play in NHL history, it's crazy when you think about that, especially for the Oilers with all the superstars that they've had during their heyday in the 80s. So just because that power play is cooking under our guy Jay Woodcroft from back home in Toronto, their head coach, I would say the Oilers because that power play is lethal. It's not a slight to the Leafs. I'm just saying that's a historic power play. And you guys know, you get a couple of those PP opportunities and those guys are snapping it around. Connor, to Leon, up to Bouchard now, who shoots howitzers, back to Connor, back to Leon, into Nugent Hopkins, with 3 guys that had over 100 points. That's pretty lethal. So I would give the Oilers the edge there.
Weeksy, I just wanted to let you know that Bryan played for the Sarnia Sting in the OHL.
Please include me when you say you guys would know.
Yeah.
I need to be included in this. Please.
Hey, look, absolutely, man. Hey, that was a good barn. Here's the thing. Were you in the old barn?
No, the new one. We were soft.
All right. You've changed.
Yeah, new
That
barn.
was an old greasy barn in Sarnia, the first one, man.
No, wasn't it?
Oh, my God.
With Kevin Weeks. I'm trying to figure out who I would consider the Cup favorite. Like, not the odds-on favorite.
Ooh.
I think that's probably Carolina because they're up 3-1 right now. But, like, who do you think is in the driver's seat right now? Who would you put some scratch on to win the Stanley Cup?
I said once all these teams started falling in the East, and not because of, but as a factor in my kind of thought process, our boy RB, Roddy Brind'Amour, and the Canes. I know it's crazy because you look at the lineup and you don't see the game breakers right now, Svechnikov being injured, Max Pacioretty, as far as shooters, right? But what Roddy's been able to do in Carolina is exactly what we had during our time with Coach Mo and Jimmy Rutherford that year that we went to the Cup final in 2002. And you'd know because you played there longer than I did, especially with you going back to Hartford. But it was just special, man. There was just like, you knew the way guys were going to play, the work ethic, the tempo. Our team was just like a buzzsaw or a chainsaw at the time. And Roddy Brind'Amour has been able to reestablish that in Carolina. And I'm telling you now, if RB was a free agent coach and it didn't get, because I had different teams reaching out to me because they know, my relationship with him, I could have seen him getting north of 8 sheets to be a head coach somewhere per year.
Ooh. Wow.
Because listen, if he was in the NBA, or if he was in the NFL, or college football or college basketball, he'd be making 10 plus for sure. And a lot of the listeners would know this. To his credit, because he is so loyal to Carolina, and because he's so loyal to Bobby Gorman and the trainers and the whole staff and the equipment guys and Tripper and everybody else, he was willing to forego his own compensation, not only from the Canes, but from the market, to make sure that everybody else got paid and taken care of. That's the kind of dude Roddy Brind'Amour is. So all of that says, I can make a case for all the remaining teams, but I said last week, and I'll stand by it right now, that I just see the Canes, the way they play, their style of play, their team defense, everything. I see it being the Canes right now.
Who's stopping pucks for them, though? Like it seems like it's a question mark every night. Like Ranta's sick, not available. Kochetkov is addressing. I mean, Freddie had himself I thought he was solid last night. Didn't have to really,
correct.
Could have played in a lawn chair last night. But I mean, that's I think that's the biggest thing. They're doing it by committee because Ranta's played well for them, but I don't know if he's got some COVID or whatever. Apparently he's been
that was weird, wasn't it? Just he's not playing now. Yeah, that was strange last night.
You know what? Noodles, I'm with you, and I've heard you say this before. This is exactly why teams, if you're serious, you have to be 3 deep, maybe 4, maybe 5. Look at Vegas. Vegas is at 5 tenders this year, and they were in their inaugural season when they went to the Cup final too. Like it's pretty interesting. I look at that and I'm like, it's really going to be a game-to-game thing for the Canes. It's a unique thing, but it'll be a game-to-game thing, whether it's their young potential star in Kochetkov or Freddie or Ranta. But here's the best part about it, and I was talking to some of the Canes guys in Jersey yesterday. Here's the best part about it. Number one, they have confidence in all 3. And number 2, all 3 have had a taste. And especially with Kochetkov coming over early last year, playing in the American League and winning the Calder Cup with Chicago Wolves, that helps him. Plus, he's played games up this year. Plus, he's played in NHL playoff games now for experience. Antti Ranta's played in some games, and now Freddie has played in some games as well. And I think the biggest challenge that I've had, and I've long been big fans of Freddie and Antti Ranta. I first heard about Kochetkov for my buddy Dave Nemirovsky back home, who coached him in the KHL. He's like, we see the Canes could have a goalie here. Our guy, Kochetkov's a really good goalie. I think he's got a bright future. That's the first time I heard about him. But knowing Freddie and Ranta, the biggest thing that has hampered them has been health, as you guys know. That's been their biggest challenge. And then the other part is actually playing in the playoffs, for those guys to actually play, not be injured or be unavailable, but to actually get that game experience. And now they've gotten that. So I think they've kind of gotten over any trepidation of that, and hopefully they can stay healthy. But they, it is an eeny, meeny, miny, mo situation there for them for sure.
Do you two, either of you two, think that you could fake it to make it and put your gear on right now and go into an NHL game and fake it and win a game 4-2?
Not me.
I would be lucky to last seven minutes, maybe the first TV timeout. Maybe
Could you? What if it was just weeks? What if it was like, we'll give you $5 million to go try and shut down Edmonton's power play on a 5-on-3 for 2 minutes, like just full 2 minutes. I don't think you'd make it. Like, I wouldn't make it out. Like, I know they'd score right away, but also like my heart rate would be through the roof. Like, I think they'd stretcher me off. Like,
I would try it, but I would get a $10 million insurance policy on my groins for sure and low back.
Yeah, the post to post. The post would be fine. They're going to be healthy posts. You guys aren't going to pull that off.
Be good.
They'll be okay.
We're not pulling. But you know what? I'm glad. Oh, it's funny you asked me that, because I was just thinking, like, when we're talking about this goalie stuff too, is what's pretty interesting to me, guys, and for a lot of listeners, because we've lived this full cycle, right? And you guys know we've all played at high levels. What's interesting is we go from playing street hockey back home, mini sticks, super checks, bubble hockey, table hockey, the whole thing, right? Hockey cards, the whole deal, stickers, and we go to playing. And then when you're done playing, kind of like that's why anytime I'm at a game, if I'm not calling the game, I try to always be down by the glass at ice level, because I really want to never forget how hard it is for guys to play and how hard of a game it is. Mm-hmm. And when we're playing, as we were playing before, we're like, okay, this is what we do. You're super conditioned. This is what you do. You're toned, you're practiced, you do all this stuff. But then when you get out of it, I have a whole different appreciation for it in terms of what these guys do and how good these athletes are, because it's so demanding. And as we're talking about the playoffs now, like I remember Paul Maurice telling me when I was going to get that start in Carolina in our playoff run in 2002 against Jersey in the first round, game 5. Or game 4, excuse me. I remember telling me when I was going to get that start. Honestly, my stomach dropped out. But I wanted the action. You know what I mean? Noodles, I'm sure you had the feeling before. You want the action, but your stomach just kind of drops. And literally I had to like put my mental in a whole different place from that time when Mo told me that in his office until literally the puck dropped with that anticipation. So it's not lost on us just how hard it is for these guys, and I give them a lot of credit, man. There's nothing like the Stanley Cup playoffs. I know the NBA playoffs have been really good this year, but there's nothing in the world like Stanley Cup playoffs in the NHL.
Well, it continues tonight. We got 2 more games tonight. Games continuing down on ESPN. Enjoy that. Great stuff as always. We appreciate you taking time for us.
Thanks, boys. Anytime, man. Keep up the great work, fellas.
You got it. There he is, Kevin Weeks. Former NHL goaler, ESPN, TSN hockey analyst, good Toronto boy, and
loves talking
very
to
inclusive.
Three former players.
Very inclusive. Very inclusive.
When you consider that power play, and listen, Noodles, O-Dog, Michael, we played against all these great players.
Man, that one hurt.
That was a new level of a one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do?
He wasn't coached in that one. At least, remember when Lucic came on? Lucic knew, like going in, that was the joke, so he tried to work it into the conversation and was laughing when he said it. Like that one, that came
that
too
was
organic
spontaneous,
for him.
man.
Yeah,
that was
tough.
very natural. Yeah, that hurt. That one stung. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll get to our same-game parlay for Game 4 tonight, a little bit later this afternoon. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Mike Johnson coming up in the next hour. Jerry's percentages at 5:30. Got Game 4, Warriors-Lakers tonight. Game 5 tonight. Yeah, it's 3-1 Lakers. It's back in Golden State. Game 5 back in Golden State. Warriors, big favorites tonight. I don't know. Look what Philly just did. They rolled into Boston last night, laid a beating on the Celtics. The Knicks are in the same situation as the Leafs as well. Like, this could be the end of the road.
I thought for once the Knicks were kind of for real.
Well, they looked like it in the first round, and then they got to the second round, and credit to Miami, because Miami was real close to just being punted. Like, they had to win a game for their lives to get in. They had to beat Chicago to get in. And now they look primed to possibly go back to an NBA Finals. That'd be a really impressive story. The idea of a play-in team, the Lakers, the same thing. They had to play their way in. The Lakers, Heat, both of them play-in teams. That'd be a cool story. I bet you Adam Silver would love that. Love that. Big markets, star power, and proof that you're in it until you're officially gone. Maybe there's an omen there for the Leafs going into Game 4 tonight. Leafs Panthers right here on TSN Radio. We will continue to tee it up. Jimmy Ralph coming up from the rink. Pierre LeBrun from the rink. Jerry's Percentages at 5:30. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.